Open the door, light the way. 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 Older Gods was written and directed by David A. Roberts in his feature film debut. He's done a couple other short film projects according to his IMDb page. Check that out for the full listing of his work. And this is currently streaming on Tubi, or not Tubi, ha ha ha, ha 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 ha, which is a free ad-based streaming service where you can find a lot of movie offerings really that you didn't even know were out. That's a great thing about streaming services like Tubi, because you can find things around the gamut from, okay, surprising, that was pretty good, really good stuff, to that was halfway decent, to what the fuck were they actually goddamn thinking? What category does Older Gods fall into? You'll find out here in a little bit. Rory Wilson plays Chris, and it centers around his character. There are a few other characters involved, not too many. This is a small production. It was done during the pandemic. About 7 people according to IMDb. And again, speaking of IMDb, $500,000 for the budget. And I'm going to say right now that one positive, they got a lot for $500,000. David A. Roberts and the crew, they did a really good job getting a lot for that budget. Creative shots, good use of music, and some, just really good camera work. There was some good stuff here. There was some good stuff, some positives here. One thing that I will say as far as the plot, and this is the plot here before I really talk about any specifics, is Chris is feeling guilt because of a friend, Billy, who he lost contact with. He was in the UK, Billy was. And it turns out that Billy did some investigating, along with some people, into a cult and met an unfortunate end. And Chris has always felt guilt because Billy decided to be a hero. Billy, don't be a hero. That's a deep cut for MST3K fans. And he's had that guilt eaten away at him, and he wanted to sway this guilt and go there, even though there are certain things going on in Chris's life back home in Denver. He mentions that's where he came from. And he's at the small cottage. He has some, video evidence and pictures and stuff. And tries to piece together this mystery to find out why Billy is history. Older Gods Tales, woohoo! So it's Lovecraftian inspired. It's about the primordial fear, the fear of feeling like you're insignificant in this world. I mean, there's more stuff to Lovecraftian stuff, but that's the baseline there. And Rory Wilson basically has to convey a whole lot because he's the central character here. Kind of reminded me of the Astral Woods, which was another small film production I think is currently on Tubi. Check that one out as well. And there are some positives. Again, they got a lot out of the budget. Rory Wilson was pretty good in this. The other characters were fine. They were fine. And David A. Roberts shows that he actually has a pretty good idea on how to make the most out of a modest budget. Or even a small budget, because it's hard to make a movie for even a few $1 million. Well, if you don't really know what the hell you're doing. Thankfully, David A. Roberts showed potential as a filmmaker, in my personal opinion, for what that's worth. I'm just a horror movie fan in general. That's just my opinion. Where this movie does falter, I think, is that it was more of a short film stretched out to 80 minutes. There are a few parts that I feel maybe it felt like a little bit padded. Enough of it worked. I'm not going to knock that. And again, the performances were good for what they were. Good use of the occasional bit of blood, and just the fear weighing over you that stuff beyond your control. You really shouldn't let it eat at you, and that's the centralized theme here. Don't let guilt eat at you. Choices sometimes that other people make are beyond your control. Sure, you want to be there. You want to do what you can for them, but sometimes certain things, are unavoidable, as sad as that is to say. And it also proves that maybe you shouldn't go trying to investigate stuff like, around death cults and cults that are really, really violent that could come after you. Maybe don't do that. Not really a good idea. The movie, again, has enough positives that I can absolutely recommend it. And check it out. There's a bunch of offerings, that have come out in the last few years, especially just this year alone. Some pretty good stuff. One shout I do want to give to Mercy Falls, which was another UK-based movie that really did have some good ingenuity as well. Older Gods does have some neat little ideas. Not perfect, but is what it is. So I am going to get into spoilers just so you know, but fine performance by Rory Wilson. Good, use of the budget by David A. Roberts, and good job by the crew, considering it was such a small crew. Well done. So, 3, 2, 1, and spoilers. Okay, there are 4 parts, and basically we find out more of the story. Chris arrives. He's hearing weird noises, bumps in the night. There's, he doesn't want to hear from a coworker of his, so he pitches his phone and breaks his phone. Sure, break your phone in the middle of the wilderness and when you're in the middle of fucking nowhere, it's fine. The music was fine. There's one particular cultist, like far away, that seems to be just stalking him. And then he finds, these audio logs and these video logs from his friend Billy, again, who decided to be a hero. And then things go along. We go to the second part down the rabbit hole. And exploring, he calls somebody and says, sorry about Billy. I believe that was the mother, if I recall correctly. If not, I apologize. Some of these characters, you only heard their name, or you only maybe heard, the baseline of how they're related to anybody. And there was one point where there were a bunch of cows in the field. It was a very calculated shot. I hate myself for that pun. And more audio video logs. A cop shows up and says, well, if you're being stalked, maybe you should leave. And Chris was like, I don't want to leave, because I got to find out more about shit. Well, if I was being stalked, I'd be home quick. And the cop's not wrong. So there's a woman named Paula, played by Lindsay Bennett Thompson, who was good. She was one of the only other ones that got really any sizable amount of dialogue. The guy playing the cop did, to an extent. And there were pics of marked people with a circle and a line through and stuff like that, and all this creepy stuff's happening. And Billy tells more stories about the countries they visited, Bosnia and, other, areas. But it turns out they were being stalked by the cult, and that's what happened to him. Then we see a smash cut back to the beginning where a guy was being killed and in a sacrificial way. And then deep voices are like, awaken me, open the door, light the way, this ancient entity, the origin, as they call it. And Chris basically ends up calling his wife, or his wife finally gets a hold of him. Why'd you take off? Why'd you do this? You got a baby on the way. What the hell are you doing? To be fair, if he did just take off and do that, kind of a dick move. But he then is getting stalked by more and more people. He's chasing somebody in the woods, and then he's being chased, or a couple cultists. You gotta open them up to light the way. You gotta kill people to awaken me, basically. And then Lord Cthulhu shows up. It's not Lord Cthulhu, but the shadow kind of reminded me, because Lovecraftian. And Chris was not willing to kill people. He was not willing to do this. He's like, I'm gonna leave. But then the cultist throws him his keys. And it turns out, actually, that the cultist is messed either with his car, or just that I took it for a joyride, parked it in the same place here. And then the creature rises, the origin. And then the fourth one, We Are Legion, part 4, We Are Legion. Now he's being haunted. Got all these voices in his head. He's all naked for some reason. This cultist is like, we are tied together. Your choice is become one with us, or your wife and your child will die. I'll choose option C. What's option C? And he stabs himself in the neck. And then he sees his brother in the afterlife. This kind of reminded me of The Frighteners, where Michael J. Fox ended up in, heaven. And the brother kept saying, or Billy kept saying, rather, they were like brothers. It's like, you can't be here. No, you shouldn't be here. Don't let that guilt weigh you down. It is not your fault. None of this is your fault. Don't carry that guilt with you. And that was good. That was pretty good there. And then Chris gets shot back to life, because earlier there was this shot. After he did that shot, he was around a gnarled tree that had a whole bunch of dead birds, and that's a little factor for the end here. The police guy said, well, I'm going to have to investigate. If you're at fault for something, I will have to investigate. But for now, somebody wants to talk to you. His wife's on the phone. Don't worry, we'll take care of you, honey. It's okay. And then he gets a little existential. And there's a dead bird in there in the hospital. Good UK care there, I guess. And that's pretty much it right there. He's like, well, maybe we shouldn't go poking around. We shouldn't do this stuff. And we should focus on the important things. Other flowery language and everything. Great, no. Good ideas. Not poor execution. It's not something that I'm going to necessarily watch again, but I appreciate the effort that was there. And for $500,000, pretty good. Pretty good effort. C+, give it a C+, gets a recommendation. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Rickland. I'll see you soon.